Hello. Today we're going to be responding to and debunking a video made by Simple History about Joseph Stalin. Simple History seems to include a lot of misconceptions about how the USSR worked and Stalin's position as General Secretary. With all that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just jump right into the video.
In 1922, Stalin was appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party,
and he manipulated his role so that he was in a powerful position.
Lenin died in 1924, and it was assumed that Leon Trotsky would be the next leader, but Stalin would make sure this wouldn't happen. He had Trotsky and other threats to his future leadership removed from the Central Committee and exiled. Eventually, Stalin was effectively dictator of the Soviet Union.
Okay, first of all, Stalin was appointed the position of General Secretary by Lenin. The position was made specifically for him. Stalin never manipulated his role to make it a powerful position. It simply was a powerful position. To begin with, the General Secretary had to deal with the police, secret police, and important party members. Stalin just did his job normally and gained loyalists within the party who liked him. Trotsky was never expected to be Lenin's successor. This claim is just completely unfounded. Trotsky was disliked by the party in general. He disobeyed the principle of anti-factionalism set in place by Lenin. Basically, anti-factionalism was a general tendency every party member followed. After a party congress or any sort of debate was held, if the majority rejected whatever idea a party member had put forth, they would have to follow the party line dictated by the majority. So basically, if you lose an ideological debate, you would have to follow what the majority wanted. You couldn't continue spouting whatever you wanted the party to do, because that would only create division within the party, leading to unwarranted factionalism. Trotsky was democratically kicked out of his position after being destroyed within several debates, when Trotsky arrogantly insisted that he was correct and that the entire party was wrong. Of course he was removed. That was the law of anti-factionalism. Trotsky was only exiled because he continued to persist that he was right, and he wasn't. He lost. Stalin was never a dictator. This is a common misconception. Even the CIA admits that Stalin was never a dictator. Collective leadership was always present within the Soviet Union. Stalin could be removed at any time, not every 4 years, at any time by his constituents. Most people don't understand how the Politburo worked or how the position of General Secretary worked, but in short, he never had dictatorial power. He relied on the Politburo, and the Politburo relied on him. He was part of the Politburo.
In the late 1920s, Stalin would aim to turn the Soviet Union into a modernized, industrialized country, and he wanted it done rapidly. He developed 3 5-year plans between 1928 and 1938. Coal, oil, steel, and electricity production massively increased, but workers who failed to achieve their ambitious targets for production were executed or sent to the gulags. He also introduced collectivization to increase food production, seizing land originally given to the peasants and reorganizing it into collective farms. Mass famine was caused as a result and millions died, but Stalin saw this as a necessary evil to achieve the ambitions of his 5-year plans and transform the Soviet Union. As Stalin created a cult of personality through culture, he became more paranoid. Everyone had to praise him, and his portrait was everywhere from schools to factories.
This is absolute nonsense. You weren't killed or sent to a prison labor camp for not meeting 5-year plan quotas. You were literally fined or transferred to a different job. That's it. As for collectivization, it was an astounding success. After its initial shortcomings caused by weather conditions and local mismanagement, it ended the cycle of famine that had plagued Russia for hundreds of years. What simple history conveniently leaves out is that the kulaks weren't peasant farmers. They were members of the bourgeoisie who had been left with their private property to sell crops and meat to the state. When they refused to sell meat and crops at reasonable prices during a crisis, the state warned them that they would engage in collectivization if the bourgeoisie did not comply. In retaliation, the members of this privileged class literally slaughtered their livestock, killing around 25 to 35% of national livestock, in addition to burning the crops and purposefully wrecking machinery, helping to exacerbate the already dire conditions brought on by the gold blockade. This, of course, resulted in a huge famine. As for the cult of personality around Stalin, it was mostly cultivated by those who were trying to undermine the state by sucking up while trying to hide their true intentions. Ironically, people like Khrushchev were very crucial in the development of this cult of personality. Some examples of this would be when Khrushchev's crony, Mikhailov, tried to publish an autobiography about Stalin that he routinely rejected for years. Or when other opportunists, like Yezhov, the head of the secret police, tried changing the name of Moscow to Stalindar. Yezhov was at the same time killing and imprisoning thousands of innocents without Stalin's knowledge.
In 1934, Stalin had party member Sergei Kirov killed because of the threat to his power. Throughout the 30s, Stalin purged Communist Party members, and 81 of the 103 generals and admirals were executed in the Red Army. 20 million citizens in the Soviet Union were sent to the gulags or executed.
The Great Purge is a very complex event, full of conspiracies, Nazi-influenced right-wing plots within the secret police and the military, along with an internal struggle between Stalin and corrupt local officials, all of this starting with the murder of Kirov. While simple history claims that Stalin murdered Kirov for no apparent reason, the truth is far more complicated. This claim is completely baseless. Even Khrushchev and Gorbachev, using hand-picked investigators, could never prove that Stalin had Kirov killed, because there is simply no evidence of this. On the contrary, there is a lot of evidence backing up the legitimacy of the Moscow trials. All facts point towards the legitimacy of the Moscow trials, that an underground Trotskyite Bukharinite organization had Kirov murdered. There's a lot of sources backing the state's claims that I'll link in the description if you're more interested in this topic. But just know the American ambassador to the Soviet Union fully believed the authenticity of the trials. As for this narrative that Stalin purged a bunch of generals and that's why the Soviets didn't fare well when Hitler invaded them, it's complete nonsense. While fascist elements trying to build a fifth column within the state were purged and killed, as you can see, this is clearly false. 30% of those purged were reinstated before World War II even started. As for the quote-unquote 20 million people who passed through the Gulag system within the 1930s, it's a complete lie. The head of the secret police, Yezhov, wanted to create instability within the USSR, so he arrested a bunch of people and killed a bunch of people. This number lay in the hundreds of thousands, not even in the millions. And as soon as he was found to be guilty, he was stopped and killed himself, and the purge came to a halt. I wanted to end the video off with a quote. Do you really believe that we could have retained power and have had the backing of the vast masses for 14 years by methods of intimidation and terrorization? No, that is impossible. The Tsarist government excelled all others in knowing how to intimidate. It had long and vast experience in that sphere. Yet in spite of that experience, and in spite of the help of the European bourgeoisie, the policy of intimidation led to the downfall of Tsarism. Besides, our workmen have 3 revolutions behind them. That is sufficient practice for them to destroy leaders they do not like. Joseph Stalin.